सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Dear devotees and friends, today we all have gathered here to remember God. So what is spiritual retreat means? Retreat means to go backward, because we have kept our mind busy with so many things all through the day. Retreat means taking the mind back. The retreat word is common or often used in the Christian monasteries. Christian monasteries, the monks would go for retreat. They would do a lot of work in their monasteries. Sometimes they go to solitude to pray and contemplate on God. This is what is meant by retreat. In some ashramas, the spiritual retreat is also called Antar Yoga. The yoga one has to do within the mind. Sri Ramakrishna would tell, often the devotees has to go to solitude and weep for the God. Sri Ramakrishna's yoga is weeping yoga. We have heard many kinds of yoga, but what Ramakrishna prescribed for this age is one has to weep for God. Or in other words, Vyakulata yoga. We have to yearn for God, hanker for God. As a child weeps for its mother, so we should weep for the God. That will purify our mind, that will purify our heart, so that we can invite the God to our heart. The purpose of the retreat is to remember God, at least this whole day. Why we should remember God here? That is very, very important. Because we are all devotees, we know the importance of spiritual life. What is spiritual life? Spiritual life is the life dedicated to God. We know we have come from God, we are living in God, and we have to go back to God. God is not something different from us. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Hruddeshe Arjuna Tishtati Ishvaraha Sarva Bhutanam Hruddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. The God is not in the temples. The God is not in the external forms like idols or the pictures. God is in our own heart. The consciousness we feel, that is what is called God. The Upanishad says that which makes us to see is consciousness. That which makes us to hear is consciousness. That which makes the mind to think is what is called consciousness. That Parishuddha Chaitanya, the consciousness. And Upanishad says Satyam Jnanam Anantam. And also the Upanishad says it is not something outside of ourselves. We are in God. We are breathing through God. We are doing all our activities through God. All the experience we have now is God and God alone. To remember that and try to concentrate on God, withdrawing the mind at least for some time from the external objects. Because throughout the day, 365 days, our mind is extrovert. What is meant by extrovert? Our mind doesn't think about the God within us. We have no time for God. We have time for everything. Every day we waste our time on useless pursuits. We are thinking about hundreds of things. We are worried about so many things. But nobody worries about the God. Shankaracharya says, Balyastavatu kridasaktaha, tarunastavatu tarunisaktaha, vruddhastavatu chintasaktaha, pare brahmani kopina saktaha, bhajagovindam bhajagovindam. When we are children, we are all interested in playing. When we become youth, we are after the sensual pleasures. And when we become old, the worry takes over. What will become to me after some years? Worry about old age, worry about the disease. But all through the life, we do not have any time for God. That is the problem. That is why we devotees take some time, at least once in 3 months or so, and come to ashrama and we assemble here to think of God. Morning we had the bhajan of God. That is the one way of remembering God. Next we had guided meditation. That is another way of remembering God. Next we had the Ashtottara Puja. That is another way, third way of remembering God. Like this, the whole day in this ashrama, in this holy atmosphere, we want to remember God. That is the only sadhana. Because in Bhagavatam says, there may be hundreds of sadhanas, practices. The goal of each sadhana, each practice, whether you sing the glory of God, whether you read the books on God, whether you do japa or meditation, whether you do service of God, whatever you do, the one goal we should keep in our mind is Marana. Marana deva kevalam. Marana is the central sadhana of all the sadhana. So the main sadhana is the remember God, somehow or other. In Bhagavata we had a very interesting episode. Even Kamsa was remembering God. That is also was called a bhakti. But that was a dvesha bhakti. He had so much hatred for Krishna. He always remembered Krishna. Even that was called the bhakti. That is why he was killed by Krishna, and Krishna gave him Vaikuntha itself. Kamsa went to Vaikuntha directly because his whole mind was filled with Krishna. So whatever may be the means, somehow or other, whether we do service, whether we any activity, our mind should be directed towards God. That is what all the bhakti literature, especially Bhagavata, says to us. So the first point is spiritual life means remembering God, and remembrance of God is the main sadhana. But we are not able to remember God. Even while we are doing japa, meditation, or we are here singing bhajans, or we are hearing lectures, we are not able to concentrate. So we need concentration of the mind. without which we cannot remember God. Krishna speaks about two kinds of mind. One is the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi ekeva Kurunandana, he says. Another is Avyavasayatmika Buddhi. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi can be loosely translated as one-pointed mind. If you are thinking about one thing, that is called one-pointed of mind. Normally, we are not able to think one thing for a long time. That is why we become restless. When we try to think only one thing at a time, mind says, no, there is other thing also. So we are not able to concentrate on anything. That is why our mind is restless. For a few minutes we think of something, next moment we will think of other thing. We are worried about hundreds of things. That is called Avyavasayatmika Buddhi. If we want to remember God, we have to cultivate what is called one-pointed mind. That is what yoga teaches. You know, if Patanjali has written a Yoga Sutra, in the Yoga Sutra he says we have to control the mind. If we don't control the mind, we cannot have the concentration. Concentration means controlling the mind. Controlling the mind is concentration. For that, we have to do two kinds of practices. Yoga also says, Bhagavad Gita also says the same thing. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grishyate. This is fundamental practices. Suppose a student is studying for his examination, he should go on studying the same thing again and again and again and again, so that he will become expert in that subject, so that he can write the examination well. One time reading is not enough. Same subject he goes on repeats. In the same way, one time uttering the name of God or sitting for one time a day or so, it's not enough. Some mantra is given by the guru, teacher. Every mantra has got a potency. A seed has got the potency to become the tree. Seed is very powerful. You cannot just throw away the seed. Seed has got inside the tree itself in the potential form. In the same way, every mantra has got a power, a potential power that can give us the realization of God itself. So what we have to do, we have to sow the seed in our heart. When we sow the seed in the land, cultivated land, and we have to water it, we have to give fertilizer, then all the seed will grow. Otherwise, seed will not grow. There should be favorable conditions for the seed to grow into the plant or the tree. In the same way, our heart itself is the cultivated land. We have to cultivate it by devotion, by prayer, by constant thinking of God, doing service to God. In so many ways, we have to purify our mind. Without purification of the mind, our mind will not be ready for sadhana at all. For that purification of mind, we have to do service of God in man. We have to work very hard, selflessly. The more we work for others, the more our mind will be purified. If we do work for ourselves with selfish motive, we develop ego, we develop attachment and the hatred. Whatever comes as favorable to us, we develop attachment, extreme kind of attachment. We always think about that. Something obstructs us in the path of the happiness or pleasure, and we hate that. So mind always thinks in terms of attachment or the hatred, raga and dvesha. And both these raga and dvesha, attachment and hatred, is the cause of our sorrow or the grief. So mind is in trouble, disturbed. Always we want something, and something obstructs us in the path, so we hate that thing. Attachment turns into hatred. So this is the problem. So what we have to do is to learn to work for others. That is what Seva Yoga is. Without Seva Yoga, we cannot concentrate upon God because our mind is not purified. With the mind full of evil thoughts, disturbing thoughts, we cannot concentrate. In ordinary things itself, we cannot concentrate, let alone on God. We cannot do it. That is why Karma Yoga is very much required. Without Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga will not come. That's why when you read Bhagavad Gita, first discipline Krishna teaches is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means not getting attached to the results and working for the Lord, working for the God. Every action, whatever action we do in our house, whatever we do in our offices or in our working field, everything we should think as the God's work. I am an instrument of God, I belong to God, I have no role in my work. So we have to give up that agencyship also. It is God's work, it is not my work. So I am doing the God's work, and not I am doing. God is making me to do this work. It is God's work, and also results also belong to God. The result do not belong to me at all. So the whole attitude has to change. Before Karma Yoga, we were thinking the work belongs to me, I am the doer, and the result also belongs to me. But after starting doing Karma Yoga, we will think everything belongs to God. Then such a kind of work will purify the heart. Purify the heart, all evil thoughts, the attachment, and also hatred, aversion, everything will come down. Mind will become very calm, quiet. That is how we have to start remembering God. That is the starting point. So Karma Yoga is the starting point of remembering God. Then there are some ways to remember God. We have to understand when we remember something, we will get absorbed in that thing. Suppose you have a son or daughter in America, you remember him or her. You get absorbed in him. So when you get absorbed, you will not be aware of the outside things at all. So the ideal is absorption in God. We are surrounded by hundreds of things. Still we think about God, and we will be immersed in the thought of God. That is the ideal of the God. So we have to practice it. So abhyasa. Abhyasa starts from the Karma Yoga itself. Then comes the Vairagya. Vairagya is not sannyasa. Vairagya we should practice in every activity. Whether you are working in the office or in the house, everywhere. If you are concentrating on something, you have to give up all other things. Suppose a student is studying, he should give up all other activities, watching TV or playing or talking with friends. There may be hundreds of activities he has to do, but he should give up all other things. He should not even think about that. He should concentrate only on studies. An ordinary student has to do. But in spiritual life, that is very important. If you want to think about God, you cannot think about the worldly things. And Swami Vivekananda, as Narain, you will find this mentioned in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Where there is Rama, there cannot be Kama. Where there is Kama, there cannot be Rama. I have full of desires, I want to fulfill that. In the same time, I want to think about God, it will not happen. The God and world are different. They are in the opposite direction. Sri Ramakrishna says, if you want to go to the eastern direction, you have to move away from the western direction. You cannot go to east and west at the same time. So the persistent effort to get rid of the thoughts of the world and continue to remember God is what is called Vairagya. But in other yogas, they have to make extreme effort for Vairagya. But in Bhakti Sadhana, Bhakti Yoga, it is very easy. And Sri Ramakrishna says, Ishvare Anurag Vishaye Virag. If you develop love for God, naturally the thoughts of the world will disappear. Suppose 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I can think of only Sri Ramakrishna, nothing but Sri Ramakrishna. At least that 10 or 15 minutes, all the thoughts of the world that gives us suffering, thought of money, thought of family, thought of so many unnecessary things, hurting someone, so many worries, everything disappears. You will find it is happening here now itself. When we are doing bhajana or meditation, when you become concentrated, at least that time, you will forget everything. Slowly, we have to increase that time by spending more and more time in bhajana, meditation, japa, etc. So, this is very, very important. The yoga method of remembering God. Abhyasa and the Vairagya. They both go together. If you don't practice, you will not get Vairagya. If you don't have Vairagya, you cannot practice. Both have to go together. Both are complementary to each other. A coin cannot have one face. Coin always has got the two faces. The spiritual practice depends upon or hinges upon the two factors, constant effort and the Vairagya. Vairagya is supported by Abhyasa and Abhyasa is supported by Vairagya. This is the first fundamental thing we have to remember. But it is extremely difficult because worldly attraction is so much, we cannot even think of God for few minutes. When we sit for meditation, always the thoughts other than God will come to us. Of course, even while walking or working, we may not be that much trouble. But when we sit for meditation, all kinds of thoughts will come. That is because we don't have love for God. Love for God is extremely important if you want to remember God. It is psychology, pure common sense. It is not something philosophical or psychological, nothing like of that thought. You love your children very dearly. One of your child in Australia, another child is in Canada. Still you love him or her. You want to talk to her. You want to talk to him. Sometimes you remember him. Isn't it? In the same way, God should be the most lovable object to us. God should be near to us. God should be dear to us. Then only we will be able to remember him. How can we make the God near and dear to us? This is another question. Because we are not seeing God. I can ask further as a reply. Suppose you are not seeing your son. Son is not near to you. Still you remember God, him. Still that your son is nearer to you, dearer to you. You are not seeing him. But our Shastra says, teacher says, Sri Ramakrishna also says, God is the most nearest thing to us. God is the most dearest thing to us. More than our son, more than our wife, more than our husband, more than our mother, more than our father. Why? Because God is our own Atman. I cannot take away my Atman. Atman is I am what I am. So God is the inner essence of my being. What I call I is Atman, and God is the Atma of the Atman, the pure consciousness that gives light to the Atman. So God is not anywhere. God is here, inside us. God is most. It is my own being, my own essence. What is the essence of the sweet? Sugar is the essence. What is the essence of a jewelry? It may be silver or the gold. In the same way, what is the essence of a human being? Consciousness. That consciousness is God. In fact, the Upanishad says, we love other people not for their sake, for our own sake, because we find ourselves in them. A husband loves his wife not for the wife's sake, because he sees himself in wife. That is why he loves. When we see ourselves in others, then only we are able to love. There is one thing which is common to everywhere, in the hearts of everyone, that pure consciousness. That is what is God. In me, in you, everywhere, in the whole world, that is God. There is no place where God is not there. Everything is God. Upanishad says, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Cover everything with God. There is no in happiness, there is God. In difficulty, there is God. In diseases, there is God. In happier time, there is God. Everything, every experience is God. So when you understand this, God will become nearer and dearer to us. But it is very abstract idea that you find in the Upanishad. So how to make God more concretized so that we can remember Him and try to understand through our mind. God is also Ishvara. God is the Supreme Lord. God is Vishnu. God is Shiva. God is Rama. God is Krishna. Where is God? God is Sarvajna and Sarvavyapi. The two words we have to remember. God is everywhere. Wherever I see, God is there. I am not able to comprehend God, that's all. Whatever I hear, that is God. So He is Sarvavyapi, He is all-knowing. And He is the creator of this whole universe. In fact, the whole universe is but God. They say in Vedanta, a potter makes the pot. Pot is different, potter is different. And God makes the world. But here God itself is the world. He himself has become the world. In Semitic religion, they don't believe in that. God is different, world is different. But in Hinduism, in Vedanta, we say it is God who himself has become the world. There is nothing here other than God. So in the Bhagavata, a beautiful shloka comes. It says we have to salute everything. Because everything is God. In trees there is God. In mountains there is God. In animals there is God. There is nothing in this world which is not God. So if you can think of like that, it is easier for us to remember God. Still that is sometimes we feel very difficult to understand this. Easier thing is avatara. Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus. And what is avatara? God has become a human form. God has come in the human form. He is like God. He is God himself. But he is a historical figure. Krishna is a historical figure. Jesus is a historical figure. Buddha is a historical figure. Ramakrishna is a historical figure. What we see in Ramakrishna? Nothing but God. So they give an example in Sri Vaishnava tradition. Elephant is there. One cannot climb up to elephant. The elephant will come down so that a man can climb upon the elephant. In the same way, we cannot go to God. God is to a higher concept for us. That is why God himself has come down to us in the form of avatara. Avatarana means descending. God is somewhere. We think God is somewhere. We are not able to think of him. No, I am here. I am in the human form. He says, everybody can think of the human form. We can easily think of Rama. Beautiful picture of Rama. We have Rama, Sita, Lakshmana. We can think of him. We can try to remember Nama and Nami. Sri Ramakrishna says, Nama and Nami are not different. Take up Nama. When you say somebody's name, oh, he's such and such. He is Vinay, his name. Suddenly that Vinay's forms also comes to our mind. So Vinay, the word, Vinay, the form are one and the same, according to Ramakrishna. Name and form are one and the same. We cannot make any difference. So when I think of the form, we think of the name. When you think of the name, we think of the form. We have not seen God, but we have the name. We have not seen Ramakrishna except in pictures, but we have the name of Sri Ramakrishna. By following name, we can reach to the form also. That is the method of the japa. Guru has given us name, and it is our duty to repeat it often, many a time, repeatedly. Narada Bhakti Sutra says, Avachinna Bhajanat. Avachinna means continuously. Whenever we get time, whenever we are little free, we have done a work with full concentrated mind, we are going to do another work, a gap of few seconds, think of God. Think of God. And Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of what? Dental, the toothache. So when we have toothache, we will take a pill or we will take a tablet that will reduce our pain. It will only reduce our pain. The pain will not completely go. A part of the mind will be always thinking of the pain, feeling the pain. Till we will be doing all things. We will go to office, do all works. Nothing will stop us from doing the works. In the same way, a part of the mind should be given to God and God alone. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna says, give a major part to the God and smaller part to the world. Smaller part of the mind, give it to the world, do all work. A major part should be always be thinking of God. And Sri Ramakrishna did so much work. From morning to night he was talking to people about God. He was not aware of hunger and thirst at all. Whole through the day he was engaged. That's why Swami Vivekananda calls him Karma Kator. He was a great Karma Yogi. Still his mind was filled with the thinking of God, as Swami Vivekananda also. And all the saints and the holy people were great karma yogis. They were all engaged. You see, Sri Shankaracharya, a great philosopher, he established 4 mats in the 4 corners of India. He traveled a lot, wrote a lot of books, but still his mind was always in the God or Atman. It is possible. If we try, it is not enough. If you try to remember God only in the time of japa and meditation. Japa and meditation we have to do to practice the remembrance of God at other times also. When we are eating, that's why in our tradition, all works are dedicated to God, so that we can remember God. We say a mantra, remember God, when we start eating, so that all through eating we have to remember God. And we are dedicating our food to God within inside, Yajneshwara. That there is a fire here, Jataragni, that is God. So all the works can be dedicated to God. And when we dedicate to God, we will remember the God. And without love, it is not possible. Without making God our own and dear one, we cannot have love. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, suppose you have love for someone. A lady came and told Sri Ramakrishna, Sir, I have extreme love for my nephew. That's why I am not able to meditate. Then what Sri Ramakrishna told, he told, you see in your nephew God himself. The God himself is in your nephew. Then it is very easy for you to meditate. So we have already love in our mind, in our heart. We have love for our children. We have love for our coffee. We have love for something delicious eat delicacies, so much. But love is withered away, scattered away. Let us gather all the power of love and direct towards God. Or see God in everywhere. If you are loving your husband so much, you see God in your husband. You are loving your wife, see God in your wife. Where is God is not there, everywhere God is there. Another very secret of this love of God is, if you can love God, you can love everyone. Because the God within me is everywhere, so we can love everyone. And love is such a great thing. It will give us happiness. That happiness doesn't come from the outside. Within our heart, that the love, the ananda, the bliss will emerge like anything. So we can continue to love God, we can continue to remember God, and we can have more and more happiness. Whatever may be mood you can have. You can see God as a friend. You can see God as something Yajamana, something my Lord, as Hanuman had. It is Dasya Bhava. We can be friendly with the Lord. Sakhya Bhava. We can see God as the child, Vatsalya Bhava, Shanta Bhava, my own Atman. So we can have different moods and remember God. So whatever we do, whether we hear about God, whether we do puja of the God, whether we read about God, whether we surrender to God, salute God, walking, sitting, eating. So there is a beautiful song by Purandara Dasa, Krishna Yanabharade. Why can't you say Krishna? While eating, Krishna, sleeping, Krishna, talking with your friends, Krishna. So there is a tradition or there is a system, custom in North India. For every word they say Ram, Ram, Ram. Like that. It is the way to remember God. So the central point is, whatever sadhana we do, we should not make that sadhana very too formal. Oh, this is sadhana I do for half an hour. Afterwards, I'll give it up and then I'll go for some secular activity. Nothing like that. In spiritual life, there is no secular activity. Whether you work in office, whether you work in home, whether you eat, whether you drink, whether you sleep, everything is spiritual. Because every time we can remember God, every time we remember God, we get the bliss, ananda. The more you want to remember God. When you get ananda, more you want. Suppose you drink a payasam, which is very good, very sweet. You want to drink it more. But you know you cannot drink it more. It will give you stomach ache. Or you will get into trouble. This is a payasa. The mantra, the name of the Lord is a great payasa. It will never give you any trouble. In fact, it will make you more and more happy, more and more joyful, more and more near to God. Because God is love. Where there is love, there is bliss. Ananda. Ananda aspect of God you are enjoying. That is why the remembrance of God is very much needed. Who will teach us all these things? Sri Ramakrishna. If you read Sri Ramakrishna's life, you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Kathamrita, every page, every line you will feel, God alone is real, everything is unreal. The purpose of life is to realize God. Sing Lord, think about the God. Think about the Lord. So what is best sadhana? Swami Brahmanandaji Maharaj says, if you want moksha, read Ramakrishna Kathamrita, Ramakrishna, the Gospel of Ramakrishna. You will find God and God alone there. This is the best way to remember God. All other sadhanas, mantra japa, dhyana, singing, service, everything included. So it will, life itself become constant practice of remembering God. And when you more and more you remembering God, you will feel the presence of God. We will feel the presence of God. You are feeling the presence of God here, Sri Ramakrishna. It's a holy place. Like this, your house also will become holy place by constantly remembering God. That is the only solution to all our problems. There is no other solution. Let us hope, let us pray to Sri Ramakrishna. Let him give us remembrance of God. Let us repeat the God's name always and derive joy out of it. Thank you very much. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.